like to call this committee workshop of the Borough of Mechanicsburg for August 3rd, 2021 to order. This is a meeting of the Standing Committees of Borough Council. First item on the agenda is the approval of the committee minutes from the July 6th, 2021 meeting. And do we have a motion? I'll make that motion. Thank you, Mr. Feldman. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Martin?
Unless there's a negative response, I will record the vote as usual.
Hearing the motion carries. All right, we begin with the Municipal and Community Outreach Committee. Mrs. Ireton.
So we are going to be meeting, sorry, I was busy talking. We will be meeting in the second week of August to go over the website design. There'll be an invitation. I'm trying to look. Do you know the date, Roger?
The 9th.
The 9th, I believe.
Okay. Is it this week? Next week.
Next week.
Sorry, I'm so disorganized. So next week, if anyone is interested in attending, we'd love to have your feedback.
And it will be by Zoom.
It will be by Zoom. Perfect. Thank goodness you pay attention, Kyle. So, but if anyone wants to participate, we'd love to have your input to make sure that we have a website that's user-friendly and going and really revamping how it looks. That's what we have.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Mrs. Ireton or the committee?
I'm excited to see how seamless the meeting minutes getting on there and stuff can be.
Yeah, it looks very hopeful to be able to make it smooth and to be easy for, I think, the office staff. I think that's another really important thing, to be able to get that information up there easily.
And we made some changes to the website, to the current website too, to make it easier for things to find. We finalized the Eco 360 stuff, and there's some information on there that we can store out there, and we can link directly to it. So planning commission agendas, minutes, all that stuff could be placed out there on the website, and then the click buttons on the front page of the home page of the regular Borough website will link directly to those for now.
We appreciate that.
Yep.
Very good, thank you. Next item is the Community and Economic Development Committee. Mr. Miller.
Other than an update possibly from Manager Sosowski regarding the comprehensive plan, I don't have anything else, but I'll turn it over to that.
All right, I think I handled all mine out. Right in front of you is that's based on my notes from the Zoom meeting we had. I think might have been the middle of May. And I apologize for taking so long to get that back out. They sent it to me as a PDF, and I could not edit it. So those are what we discussed at the meeting, and I set it up with the high priority, what we've got completed, what we're still working on, stuff that's in progress, and the low priority stuff that you had on there. I did take off, I think there were 2 items on there that you asked to be requested. One referenced Corridor 1, so we just took it out of there completely. I've been in touch with Carolyn. She is looking right now, currently, Silver Springs is back on the docket for getting their comprehensive plan. East Pennsboro is working on their comprehensive plan. They're both contracted with EPD, the same one we did, so when they come down, they're just going to do a municipality sweep, basically, and get everybody all at the same time. So to save everybody some travel costs and stuff like that from Pittsburgh to here. So they're looking forward to hearing back from us as far as this goes and the next steps going forward. In that packet of information they sent, there were some references in there to small cell towers. I know Solicitor Cassidy sent out a notice about small cell towers with some sample documents on it, sample ordinances. We're still looking at those. The state legislature has passed the small cell tower bill. I don't know exactly what the bill number is anymore, but I met with Cheryl Delosier and a bunch of my counterparts down at Lower Allen. We discussed this rather at length and how each of us are handling it. A lot of the ones that you're going to see, the baseball bat type, the ones that look like an eyedropper or a baseball bat sticking up out of the ground, you're going to see those where there's a lot of underground electricity. We don't have in the downtown and stuff a lot of underground electricity, it's all overhead. So they're gonna cohabitate on the poles that are already up there. So we're not gonna get those wiffle bat type structures, you know, on the sidewalk like you see. If you go down Front Street in Harrisburg, you'll see them all along Front Street. They're not gonna be in the borough. They're gonna be more mounted on the towers. There's one back here on Green Street that they mounted up on the pole. There's some apparatus, it's right at the corner off of Frederick. You make the corner, it's the first telephone pole there. Verizon put one in. They're actually replacing a pole on Schoolside Drive with this, with a new 50-foot pole, and they're putting this stuff on it. So a lot of our stuff is gonna be mounted on existing poles. Legacy Park, that could be a different story because all the utilities are underground at Legacy Park. So, but this is for wireless Wi-Fi in the houses is what a lot of this is done to drive small cell problems and stuff like that, but this is to address mainly broadband internet for people in their homes over the Wi-Fi is what this is meant to address. A lot of the stuff in Legacy Park, they're already hardware. So that shouldn't be, we shouldn't see these in Legacy Park. Verizon has a lot of their stuff underground already. Like the FiOS is all underground in the borough. Out especially in Orchard Crest, Heritage Acres, a lot of places like that where there's a big tree lawn and stuff, they can put that stuff underground. I don't think this is going to impact us as much as what it's going to impact some of the bigger cities that have all of their utilities placed underground. So, but we handled it, we've got them with zoning permits, street cut permits, and with zoning permits to cover this. So the inspections are being taken care of from our point of view, and we know where they're going in and what they're putting in. So I think we've got that handled pretty well. I do think there's some room for a little more protection, and we're going to look at that ordinance that Solicitor Cassidy sent and go from there.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Miller or the committee?
So what is the next step for us to keep this moving forward?
Would be sent to,
No, I was for you guys to make sure, check, make sure that my notes match what you guys had intended. If I get it all clear back from the committee, I will send that out to EPD.
Okay. Thank you very much. Next item, Finance Administration Ordinance. Mr. Anthony is not present. Mr. Miller, do you have anything to add to that?
I don't have anything.
I do not either, so we will move on to the Personnel Committee. And that's Mr. Whitcomb and Mrs. Agerton.
There's nothing to report at this time.
Okay, thank you. Property, Parks, and Recreation, again, Mrs. Agerton.
Yep, so this weekend is our 100th anniversary at Soldiers and Sailors. A lot of work has been put into it, a partnership between the Rec Board and Downtown Partnership, and of course our Borough office to pull off this great event. So hope to see you guys there. There's been a lot of focus getting that going up, and I'm sure Roger has some updates from the pool for us. the pool saga continues. So I know that in our rec meetings, we are discussing, you know, future planning for our pool and how to sustain some of these things that are going on. Roger?
All right, I can, yeah, the pool schedule for the last 2 weeks it's open has been posted. Sue's adjusted them. She's got lifeguards that have already gone back to college. So we're starting to get thin on the lifeguard side. Community Day, she's open for Community Day. It is not free this year, so patrons will be having to pay to get in. But it's just typical weekend rate. There's no special rates for that day. The slides have been down for the last 2 weeks. The fiberglass is starting to delaminate on the open slide in different spots. We've been keeping an eye on it, and it cracked, and I can't get anybody to come out and repair it. We've got to take it apart and take it to them. So the fact of the matter is, in the class that I attended for my certifications to inspect those, the lifetime on open fiberglass slides is about 12 years, 10 to 12 years. So we're at about the end of the lifetime for that fiberglass. So, I've been looking at different companies. Playtime is the one that contracted that slide. We're gonna look at getting replacement tubes. The superstructure, the concrete's fine, the metal's fine, there's nothing wrong with that, it's the fiberglass, and that takes a good bit of weight. I mean, the varied amount of riders that go up and down that, or go down that, and it's being in the sun all the time. Only being used 3 months out of the year, it takes a beating, the rest of the time when there's no water running in it, so, but the young man, he cut his shoulder, he's fine. We've heard nothing else about it, but we've had the slide shut down since, I want to say, about the third week of July is when we shut them down.
I guess it wouldn't be possible to run the enclosed tube and leave the...
We can't run just one that's on the same pump system. I mean, we can shut it down and
just put a cover over the open one and let them stroll. I know that's a big attraction for the kids.
It is. So, but they've upped the use on the aqua zippins, and we've got those to the point where, knock on wood, they're pretty bulletproof right now. I haven't been called out there because of any malfunctions on those lately. Russell Moy, the inventor of those, he was up, he took pictures of all the modifications that I made to those to make them work, and they're incorporating them in the design. So the things that I changed to make these things work the way they're supposed to. So, and he's also sending us some new launch pads, free of charge, supposed to be. So I'll see.
Is that in place of your patent?
That's in federal government
or your?
Yeah, the borough's patent. I work for the borough, Gary. A few other things. Do you want me to just go over my list real quick?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if anyone has been to the parks, the amount of work that the borough office has done to keep them up, attendance is huge. You drive past there's games, there's pickup basketball. People are really using the parks, and I've gotten a lot of feedback that they're very happy with the benches that have been replaced, you know, the gazebos and the picnic area, so thank you. But go ahead and continue, because I know there's a lot.
I have, going along with what you said, I can't, the guys have done a fantastic job keeping up with things. They all go up and do a sweep through the park first thing in the morning, and then they go about their other duties, so. They've been really good about getting that stuff done. The tree trim, there's 5 sycamore trees that the Shade Tree Commission recommended we take down. I marked those today. I'm getting prices for those. These are bittersweet to take down. I hate taking these trees down because it's what Memorial Park is all about, but I want to get an arborist to look at them first because something's eating the trees. You can see how it's spreading from one tree to the next, and I want to see what's going on before we lose any more of them. That's property. As far as property goes, the garage door in the back, the police use to exit, is still closed. I signed the proposal from Ken Robinson today for his engineering services, for him to work up a plan to fix that. It's in pretty bad shape. It could affect the whole back end of the building, so we got to get it addressed one way or the other. So as soon as we get his plan done, we can get prices on the fix and then proceed with there. So right now, all the police cars are kept outside, so we're looking at those. I think that's all I have under your committee, Sarah.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Anything else for the committee? I'd just like to make one comment. I walk every morning through the park, and I see the guys out there working, and I think the park, at least Memorial Park, that's the only one I get to, looks better than it's looked in, I can't tell you how long. The guys are doing a great job. The mowing company's doing a great job. It's very inviting, and I've often said that our park is like our family room or in our house. You know, it's supposed to be inviting, and so far it is.
And I just want you to know that UA Mechanicsburg Baseball did a shout out to our parks, which is a very surprising thing because we've always had, you know, a little bit of a relationship there, but they've been bragging all over the place about the parks this year. So.
And we also had the recent Legion State Baseball Tournament there, and there were hundreds of people here playing baseball all day long. It was great. It's great. So thank you to please relay to CH and his crew our thanks for a job well done.
I will.
And also to Sue for keeping the faith and keeping the pool going.
Well, and I do want to do a shout out to the lifeguards. If any of you guys go down to the pool, this is a record year for saves. These lifeguards, and it is a tough job to begin with, but I don't know what their save count was, but it was way over 30 at our last meeting. So just keep them in mind because they're working really hard to keep our kids safe and doing a phenomenal job this year. Very mature.
All good to hear. All right, hearing nothing else for that committee, we move on to Mr. Pellman and Public Works and Safety.
Our committee did not meet, but I think Roger has some things to talk about.
I thought it again, that was all under this committee.
You guys are gonna need a special meeting just for me to talk. Enterprise, we talked to Enterprise, we ran into an issue with our trucks that we ordered in February. Not just the microchip issue that everybody's having. The 2021s that we signed the agreement to purchase were sold to Amazon instead of us, so we're not getting them. So they sent me a re-bid for 2022s that I won't see until, the trucks I won't see until March sometime next year. And the price went up pretty significantly on the trucks. So there's no guarantee that they won't be succumbed to microchips or something else along the way. So in the meantime, Enterprise Fleet Leasing Services has reached out to me. They spoke to Chief and I probably about 4 years ago. And at that time, their lease agreements weren't as beneficial as what they seem to be now. I've gone over the lease agreements again, and they look pretty decent, at least somewhat in our favor. Of course, Solicitor Cassidy will be reviewing all that fun paperwork when it comes time for it. But he wants to do a 10-year vehicle replacement plan, looking at all of the vehicles, Chief's police vehicles, highway vehicles, including the large dump trucks and the swap loaders that we presented to the committee in, when was that, June or May or March or May, I forget when that was, I just presented that. And they're going to give us a price on a 10-year plan. They will going to try to do everything I can to make sure the maintenance cost is included in that price so that we're not paying extra maintenance on top of these. But he's looking at a 10-year turnaround plan for most of the borough vehicles on a lease basis. It's one of those ones where when the lease is up, we turn the vehicle back in, it goes to auction or however they sell it, and then that purchase price gets put towards our tab. So it's a pretty decent deal, but they will do everything, including lettering, putting the radios in, putting the light bars in, whatever we spec to them, they will make sure those trucks look like that when they bring the keys to us and tell us they're ours. So I'm meeting with him on Friday, and then again next week to finalize what the plan should look like, and then I'll be ready to present it to council as a whole. So, and see where we're going to go from there. He wants to look at it for budget time, so that's where we're kind of at with that. But as far as vehicles go, we kind of scrambled this year. We did get some repairs made on a couple of the trucks, so they put them through inspection. They passed. It's questionable for next year. We'll see where it goes from there, but at least we've got a decent-sized fleet. We're only down, I think, 2 trucks for the fleet for coming into winter. Now, that's not the big trucks. This is some of the smaller ones they use day to day, so they've been making some adjustments. That's all I have right now. That's just more of a heads up for this point in time. The tree trimming on Main Street, I'm awaiting the contractor to schedule that to coordinate with the police chief, with CH, and PennDOT to get those trees trimmed. They came back with a bid of, I think it was around $8,000 for that, to proceed with that, so we're going to get that taken care of. They want to work at night. PennDOT's not sure about working at night, but they do want the cars cleared off that street for safety's sake, for dropping limbs, because they're going to be cutting quite a few. They're going to be doing the entire block of, the entire 300 block of East Main, part of the 200 block of East Main, and then some on Walnut Street. there's no parking on Walnut Street, so that's not gonna be a problem. But for the most part, they're gonna get flagger for us, a few other ones out there to get this taken care of. But Sergeant Dyer provided the site distances for the lights. I marked them out, and it's pretty significant, the amount of trees they're gonna be cutting out to meet the site distances.
Does that work with property owners don't have a stake in paying for?
Our ordinance requires 14 feet, so we can make them cut 14 feet, and most of those trees down through there are. But if you're in a car and you're not familiar with, and you're westbound on Main Street, and you're coming into town, you can't see the red light until you're, within 50, 60 feet of that red light. So, that's been a problem, as Councilman Anthony has spoken about. There's been, tractor trailers run red light. I think there's a few persons from the audience that have made, from the public that have made comments to council. So we're gonna we can only make them go 14 feet. Anything above that is entirely up to us to handle from there.
Just a suggestion, if you're going to have a large section of Main Street blocked off, perhaps it would be a good idea to contact the street sweeper and ask them to come out for a street sweeping that particular day.
These guys are supposed to clean up everything after they're done, so, and
Then you could work at it.
the other part about, when that reminded me about working at night, there's power lines through there. I told the company I don't agree with him working at night because, lighting is not the best down through there, and I don't wanna see somebody get hurt, or they cut power and phone lines for, half the town coming into town there, so, I think they're gonna be doing it through the day, and they'll close one lane at a time. So, yes, I will definitely coordinate with the street sweeper and have him, if he's in town that week, and get him to take care of that.
And on the point of public works, and I know you're talking about, enterprise fleet leasing, is there any discussion in regards to any sort of, vehicles that would assist in the cleanup of leaves? Because I know that,
We're gonna go back to the old way of doing it, two dump trucks and the leaf vac. So as long as the leaf vacs last. We did talk about, getting one crew out early in like mid-October, and then both trucks for the month of November, and be done with it then. So you're gonna probably see some piling up, but, until we get, unless we have a cold snap like we did last year where they all dropped at the same time, we should be in pretty good shape with both trucks this year.
okay, thanks.
All right, anything else? All right, hearing none, we'll adjourn the standing committee workshop, and the council meeting will begin in about 7 minutes. I'd like to call this Borough Mechanicsburg Council meeting of August 3rd to order. We will begin with a pledge of allegiance followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mrs. Martin, roll call, please.
President Weber.
Here.
Vice President Miller.
Here.
Councilwoman Anderson. Present. Councilman Butcher.
Here.
Councilman Hellman.
Here.
Mayor Ritter.
Here.
Solicitor Cassidy.
Present.
Engineer Rebelski.
Here.
Chief Myers. Here. Chief EMT Wardle.
Here.
We have four.
Thank you very much. Are there any guests this evening?
None that I know of, sir.
Thank you. All right, we come to that point in our meeting. First opportunity for citizens' comments and requests. Before we begin that tonight, I'd like to relay to the public and to the rest of council that we are now adopting a time limit on our comments because they are to be comments, not discussions. And if you have a comment to make, you'll be given 3 minutes at the beginning of the meeting. If that's not enough time, you'll get an additional 3 minutes at the end. And someone from either council or the manager's office will contact you in a response to whatever your comment is. So, given that information, are there any citizens' comments or requests this evening? We know you, Mr. Clemson, but could you please state your name and address?
Yes. My name is Sam Hepford, and I will be brief.
Thank you.
Excuse me. My comments deal with your re-election prospects and how you may be defeated. As many of you are aware, I ran for a seat on the Mechanicsburg School Board. Leading up to the primary, I mailed out to about 500 of the most likely Republican voters. The addressees were active voters, as voted on the Board of Election street list, right here. 60 of the mailings, that is more than 10%, were returned to me by the U.S. Post Office. These envelopes right here. I draw your attention to the name John Lehman, residing at 213 West Main Street. Mr. Lehman is dead. Here is his obituary. Mr. Lyman is active on the voter rolls and will remain so as long as someone votes in his name by mail. The same is true of all the absent voters. Many elections are decided by a margin of less than 60 votes. If you want to be reelected, it would be wise to lobby local representatives and senators to do the following. Number 1, repeal Act 77. There should no longer be mail-in ballots because these are easy to manufacture. It takes only one original ballot, photocopied, and presto, 60 votes for your opponent. In-person votes are much harder to fill. Number 2, the Board of Elections should be required to keep voter rolls up to date through direct contact by a return mail postcard. At this time, absent voters are purged only if the rolls only after 2 election cycles or 4 years. If a vote is mailed in the name of an absent or dead voter, the voter's name remains on the active rolls. 3, Commonwealth agencies responsible for records for recording deaths should coordinate with the Board of Elections to immediately purge the name of the deceased from the rolls. I urge you to lobby the county representatives and senators to implement these reforms immediately. As elected office holders, your word carries more weight than that of a private citizen. I have contacted senators and representatives many times, and the response has been happy talk. Your re-election depends on the forms noted above. I have attached contact information with your handout. Thank you.
Mr. Hepford, do you have your little thing written out?
Yes.
Would you care to submit it for the record?
Sure.
Thank you. That'd be most helpful. Yes, it's down this way. Thank you very much.
I yield to Roger.
Are there any other comments? Any others? Yes.
Good evening, Borough Council. My name is Sunny Podolak. I live at 405 East Marble Street. I am employed by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as a Public Health Program Director, and most importantly, I'm a mom to a 17-year-old girl who will be a senior at Mechanicsburg High School this coming year. On Monday night, July 12th, my 17-year-old daughter had her 17-year-old friend over for a visit. The friend left at approximately 10:30 p.m. to drive to another friend's house in Stonehenge off of Allendale Road to pick up her phone charger that she left behind, and then to drive to her home at 412 North Market Street, all with the intention of arriving home by 11 p.m. During her drive home, she was pulled over by Borough Police because her headlight was out. She was also issued a warning for being out past the 10 p.m. Borough curfew. My daughter's friend's mother and I spoke and found the Borough ordinance for curfew on the Mechanicsburg Borough website that states, curfew hours are the hours of 10 p.m. through 5 a.m. prevailing time on Sunday through Thursday, and 12 midnight through 5 a.m. prevailing time on Friday and Saturday. She and I have both been parenting with the curfew of 11 p.m. that is associated with the Pennsylvania Junior's driver's license. I found the following on the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation's website, and I'd like to read it to you as written. Regarding a junior license, young drivers who graduate to a junior license have satisfactorily completed all learner's permit requirements, including the road test, but the following restrictions still apply. Nighttime driving restriction begins at 11 p.m. Even with a junior license, a young driver may not be behind the wheel between the hours of 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. Our neighboring community, Upper Allen Township, where many of our children's classmates live, has a curfew ordinance that reads as, no minor shall be or remain in or upon any public place or any establishment between 12 midnight and 6 a.m. of the following day, official township time. Another neighboring community, Silver Spring Township, has a curfew ordinance that reads as follows. It shall be unlawful for any minor to remain in or upon any public place or any establishment between the hours of 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. of the following day. Members of Borough Council, I am requesting that you consider aligning the Borough of Mechanicsburg's minor curfew with the Pennsylvania Junior Driver's License driving restriction, as well as our neighboring community's curfew. In conclusion, I'm requesting consideration that the language in the current curfew ordinance be modified to read as, curfew hours are the hours of 11 p.m. through 5 a.m. prevailing time on Sunday through Thursday, and 12 midnight through 5 a.m. prevailing time on Friday and Saturday. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much.
Tied up pretty well.
Mine was just about ready to ding. I'm late. Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments. I would like the Public Safety Committee to review her request and come back to council. And also check with Chief and
come up with thoughts on that. They stem from my.
Well, we had discussed.
We don't want to get this discussion here, but, yeah.
We had discussed this when we did our comprehensive review, and it was one of the things we had outlined as possibly needing change, but we weren't going to address it at that particular time because Councilman Pellman was here and he voiced his concerns from his experience, because I came from a different perspective, and quite the opposite perspective, and I had thought we could just.
Yeah, we have to remember there's kids under 17 that you want to get in. And this is a town, whereas the others are townships. You're going to have a lot more trouble they can get into in that Mechanicsburg Borough than they can in the rural townships. So I definitely have some input in regards to that.
okay. I think the committee would review it,
I think it's worth reviewing.
and then we'll see what we can come up with. But we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A point of clarification, are we talking about driving or loitering? Because I think that.
Well, an officer can use discretion, and that's the thing. If somebody's in a car, you really need to worry about their being out after curfew by half an hour or whatever. But when we have to have a tool to deal with the kids that are out, that aren't in a car, they're wandering aimlessly, and again, we're talking sometimes as young as 12 and 13, and it's a tool that I don't think we should dispense with so quickly. I had issues when they changed the curfew years ago, and I was still working as a policeman, and we got no input at all into that when it was changed. I think for you and the chief spots met and made those decisions, And
I thought he was going, you're talking 12, 14 years ago, but I thought he was going with you, because I was on council and was the primary backer of this ordinance. And I thought he was conferring with the police department.
I don't remember that. Do you, Chief? Yeah, I mean, we got no input into that, and I was very upset at the meeting when we were told that the curfew had changed, because it used to be staggered for ages,
Yeah.
if you remember. And there's some validity to the having it staggered, because
And we were mainly having issues with Memorial Park and Finkenbinder were the two that were the driving force behind this. There were a few packs, I don't want to say packs, but there were groups of kids roaming the streets late at night, and that was the one, this is, as a matter of fact, Solicitor Miller was one of the ones that came in and
I don't know that that's something that's necessary for somebody driving in their car.
No, and we wrote it, the way that we did write it was so that, they couldn't just pull somebody over and ask to see their identification. There had to be no reason behind it. It wasn't a stoppable offense.
Right.
But we had residents in here at that time, we had kids in here at that time saying, we were crushing the kids' dreams. And the other one was, the parents weren't taking responsibility for it. And I know that Chief Spots at that time had mentioned that to council a couple times. So, at that time, I was the chairman of the ordinance committee, and they asked me to look into it. We pulled a couple samples, and this is the one that Chief Spots actually liked the best and felt it was enforceable. Now, I apologize, I thought he read this by.
No, he didn't, and he also very seldom had any dealings with enforcing it. That was my feelings, I mean, because we were the ones out there having to deal with the kids, and it's such an important tool in town.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's such a big deal in the townships where if somebody wanders into your yard late at night, it's just not as likely to happen, but in town, there's an attraction to the downtown area, and the houses are closer together, and the shadows.
Well, let's take it under advisement and consideration, and then we'll see if we can make some subtle changes if necessary.
It sounds like it's a very multifaceted issue, that one blanket statement for minors may not be what the intention of this was.
Not to convolute an ordinance, but we certainly will address it.
Okay.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Do you want this?
We have it.
We have it.
Oh, thank you.
Are there any other citizens' comments? Hearing none, we will move on to the approval of the minutes of the July 6th meeting. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Pellman. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Booper. Is there any comments, corrections, additions, or deletions? Hearing none, Mrs. Martin?
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the vote as unanimous.
And the minutes are approved. Next item is the engineer's report.
Mr. President, I don't have anything specific. I do have a little bit of, discussion related to our first agenda item, so perhaps I'll just hold till then.
That would be fine, thank you. Community liaison reports, downtown partnership.
Just a reminder to everyone that we do have Community Day, the celebration of our 100th anniversary of Soldiers and Sailors, starts at 10 a.m. Please spread the word. We're very excited about it. It will go till 3. There will be food trucks, some artisans will be there, and entertainment. We're super excited for this event, so please bring your family. There's inflatables. I know people are excited about that, so please bring your children to slide on the inflatables. And then also, just moving forward, I want you guys to mark September 18th. That will be the groundbreaking for the downtown Mechanicsburg partnership for our revitalization project. So it'll be right down in the center, catty corner from Blitz Silk. Mark your calendar. It'll be a very exciting event. So thank you. And that's at 10 a.m.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mrs. Agerton? Thank you. Library, Mr. Pelman?
A lot to cover, but I'll try to do it as quickly as possible, but all of it important stuff, I think. This Saturday is the annual Run for Reading to benefit the library. There's a 5K run, a 1-mile fun run, and a mini dash. It starts at 8:30 in the morning, and it's out at Winding Hills Park. You're still able to register for it. You can do it right up to race time, and you can even register online up until midnight tomorrow night, I believe. There's age groups and prizes for each of the age groups. I'm going to be out helping supervise course volunteers that day. It is the same day as Community Day, but for the most part, the Run for Reading is done by the time that Community Day gets into full swing. So still a good benefit to the library. We do have a dine out to benefit the Friends of Mechanicsburg Library this month. It's at Fusion Fire. It's a restaurant in Camp Hill. It's at 3421 Simpson Ferry Road. It's on Wednesday, August 11th from 4:30 to 8:30. A portion of your food bill will be donated to the library, but as usual for all of these dine outs, you must have a flyer. And you can get them either online or at the library. Unusual this year, but they're having an August book sale to benefit the library. And that's Saturday, August 21st and Sunday, August 22nd. They're having their usual sale on Saturday, August 21st from 9 to 2. And then the bag sale on Sunday where you fill a bag and pay a price for a bag full of books, and that's 1 to 3. And all of that's being held at the bookstore donation site at 114 North York Street. The library is still selling T-shirts, so if you want a fancy-looking T-shirt that'll help benefit the library, they're still for sale. And they are having a theater night at the Little Theater of Mechanicsburg to benefit the library. The show is The Importance of Being Earnest. And that is in September, but I'm warning you now because they only have 64 seats there at the Little Theater. Tickets are $18 a piece, and it's a pretty cool little theater there if you've never been there. So please feel free to buy a ticket and do it quick, though, I would think. And also, the library wants you to know they do not want you to donate any books from August 4th to the 24th. They have so much to go through and work through at their donation center that they're asking you to hold off on your next donation until after August 24th. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll move on. Museum Association, I'm pleased to report that September 25th, mark your calendars, will be the dedication of the gardens, which includes the little building and the fenced-in area next to the tavern. Don't have the times or any of the details at this point, but that's the date that's been selected. Other than that, things are copacetic and moving along as usual. So we'll move on, unless anyone has any questions. Downtown Program Service Manager, Rebecca Yerrick.
Good evening, everyone. You have a copy of my report. I have some extras if anyone would like them as well. I am working with Joyce Park Williams. She is the Kimchi girl. She works out of her home and does some fulfillment at a property just down the street here where her husband has patent flax. The family owns that building. She needs a production facility. She has a really cool pop-up shop, though. And one of the places that we're looking at is the building where Zero Hazard is, Pizza Hut is, on Simpson. The end unit Zero Hazard is going to be moving, so that's available. And she could put her pop-up when she wants to pop up, right on the end there facing Simpson Street, across from the chicken barbecue location. So we continue to look at that. We're looking at some other places as well. We'd like to keep her local if at all possible. I mentioned last month we had a nibbler for the Ritters property. They continue to nibble. And we'll have more on that. I will provide it. Waft is a weaving business, and they are going to be going in what was the Fathom Studio location at the rear of 310 East Main Street. Nellie Smith is the owner of that. That's Jason's wife. And she's looking to continue many of the traditions and things that Tara Kiley Rothwell did at Kite Hills Weaving. Tara passed away a few weeks ago, as you know. I spoke with the new owners of the Lumbee's Bag Processors property today. They also own 2 of the residential homes across the street on West Allen, and they have an interest in my favorite property, which is a few doors down. I was told by the realtor that they weren't sure how they were going to utilize the building, but it probably would be for storage, and I remember saying that's never the case. But in this case, they don't have any plans. They're looking for a tenant. They want somebody who will lease the entire building, and they would be permitted to sublet it. So talked with them. I have somebody in mind. It's going to take an awful lot of money to make that happen for anybody in sort of a presentable and public kind of space, usable space, something other than warehousing or some sort of production facility, but I have some things in mind. They indicate that they're also interested in being investors in those enterprises, should they like them. We'll see what happens there. The Rosemary House gets to have a Pennsylvania Tea Festival this year. They missed out last year, so that's September 24th and 25th. It's going to be a very busy weekend. We have a lot of things going on that weekend and the weekend before. This time of year, you normally get some information about the Community Development Block Grant funds for 2022. We're looking at modifying that timeline for applications, and then also with that, when those awards would be given. So just look for more information on that. When I have that, I will get that to you. The county commissioners are considering revamping that a little bit. Then I jump back to the Mechanicsburg Museum Association. Last month I indicated that we were hopeful of signing the easement for the Tavern Patch to give it to the Museum Association. That didn't happen in the 2 weeks that Jeannie Capello, who owns the land, was in town because her granddaughters were going to the Central Pennsylvania Youth Ballet. Now she's back in New England. She'll be back in September. She had a couple minor changes to the easement document, which she'd had for many months, and her attorneys had it as well. But she assures us that she will be able to sign in September. So I'm hoping, Gary, we can roll that right into the events on the 25th, since it's right short. Yeah, that would be great. And she could be there, which would be really, really nice to thank her for that as well. That's everything that I have. Anything for me? All right.
Sample of kimchi?
I thought it was a drink, Roger. I am so plain. I'm so meat and potatoes. I thought it was like kubacha or whatever that stuff. It's fermented vegetables.
It's
good.
basically it's
With salt.
Korean coleslaw. To kind of look at with hot peppers and everything.
I did my research before the meeting, so I didn't totally embarrass myself, but she's a fantastic marketer. Her materials are wonderful. She did an event a few days ago at the opening of Plum Bottom at Neighbors and Smith. Had a big turnout. She's only been in business for a few months, but she has a great following already.
Her marketing is her cooking. She was making spare ribs the day I talked to her, and it was right after lunch, and I was still hungry, so.
Well, that's something I could think about. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. All right, are there any additions to the agenda?
I have no additions to the agenda, sir.
Mr. President, there's one item that I think Roger meant to bring up during the correspondence with respect to the Gingerbread Man and their economic development.
Yeah, we skipped over correspondence. Yeah, you're correct, Solicitor Casting. We did receive a formal notice from, and I didn't print it out and bring it back to us, I forgot it. We did receive formal notice from the solicitors for Mr. Phelan and his Gingerbread Man requesting that council approve a by ordinance, and Mr. Cassidy can elaborate on that a little bit more, an economic development liquor license for them to use at the Gingerbread Man. He did formally request it. I apologize, I did not print it out and bring it back with me. I was worried about getting everything else squared away, so.
So the request came in formally by letter last Friday, July 30th. It is a formal request under section 461 of the Pennsylvania Liquor Code, which provides limits as to the number of liquor licenses per county based upon population. There are exceptions to that, and that is where the Liquor Control Board can award an economic development liquor license if the local municipality approves it. And there's a procedure set forth in section 461, whereby if a municipality receives a request, that the governing body is required to either approve or reject the application by ordinance. And prior to voting on the application, the municipality is required to conduct at least one public hearing to accept public comment on the application itself. So that was the presentation from Mr. Phelan in early July on the 6th was a prelude to this formal request that was submitted to us. So I would request that in addition to that we add to the agenda a motion that would direct me to prepare a proposed ordinance for an upcoming council meeting, and also to schedule a brief hearing to take public comment on the application itself.
Okay, we need someone to take his request to add that to the agenda.
Is it the burden of the municipality in which the applicant submits for this to provide the ordinance? Or does the municipality have the option to shift that burden to the applicant to provide the text?
That's an excellent question. So the applicant's attorney has prepared a draft ordinance. I have not had a chance to review the ordinance, but I think getting to your ultimate point is the cost associated with this, and the applicant is prepared to reimburse the borough for legal expenses and the cost of the court's stenographer for the public hearing.
Are there any other stipulations or requirements to the application other than solely the ordinance, like submitting a plan for the property and business?
Well, there are no specific requirements set forth in the law, in the statute. It's simply a public hearing on the proposal. So it would behoove an applicant to come prepared with a full explanation of what is being proposed, so that folks can have a better idea of whether it's a good idea or not a good idea for the borough. I will say though, when it comes to the liquor license itself, it would be an economic development liquor license that would not necessarily have stipulations attached to it that would require the developer to actually develop the property as explained during that public hearing, if that makes any sense. So
and it would only be, this ordinance would only be necessarily a recommendation to the CDD. It wouldn't be that we were actually approving the license.
That is correct. So without the approval from Borough Council, the application is dead in the water. So PLCD would not approve an application unless the municipality has given its blessing and approved the application itself.
Okay.
So we need a motion to add this to the agenda.
We'll make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a second? All right, so Mr. Pellman moves, Mrs. Agaton seconds. Is there any further discussion? Mrs. Martin?
Unless I hear a negative response, I'll record the vote as unanimous.
And we will add that item to the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, and so at this point, we need to approve the agenda with the addition. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Bruker makes a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And Mrs. Agaton seconds. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Mrs. Martin?
Unless I hear a negative response, I'll record the vote as unanimous.
And the motion carries and the agenda is approved. All right, action items before Borough Council, Mr. Szewski.
Action items before Borough Council on August 3rd, 2021. Discussion and action to authorize borough staff to engage Benoni engineers for road surface analysis and mapping. And Greg has a presentation to go over what this all involves and a brief price quote.
Yes, small one, how about that, I'll give you a small one. So, thanks for the opportunity, Council. I wanted to bring to the Council's attention that, an emerging technology that Benoni has partnered in. And it's not just Benoni, most firms around the world. As technology progresses, we're looking to employ that technology to better kind of account for some of our issues. So, it's called Intelligent Pavement Management. We've partnered with a firm called Robotics, and what it is, you've probably seen some of their equipment out on the street. It's a van with a scanning technology essentially attached to the back. They drive around. That is a separate process by which they go around, and within the streets of the borough, they would basically scan the condition of the pavement within all those streets. So the benefit obviously is being attached to a vehicle, they can probably do the streets in the borough within a day and a half kind of thing versus somebody walking around taking these notes by hand, and then of course synthesize the data, which is really the intelligent part of it, and take that video that they take as well as the readings that they take and put it into a form that is more easily accessible to not only borough staff, but also the public as well as council to make informed decisions about where to go next. So this is one shot, and I realize it's going pretty quick, but the idea behind it is that it's going to rate your roads on a 1 to 5 scale. So it's pretty simple. It's very similar to what we do today, but just, from a practical perspective, it's doing this kind of on the fly as it's driving around. And then it is actually comparing the condition of the roads in the borough of Mechanicsburg against every other road conditions ever scanned in the last 5 years amongst all its clients. So it's not just Greg Walski thinks that this road is a 4, it is an artificially intelligent process by which it's actually comparing it to other boroughs, other townships, all other roadways that it actually scans to create this 1 through 5. It also has the ability to not only take that 1 through 5 rating for, say, an entire street, but then also to obviously present it in a way that's a little bit more easily understood to the public with respect to a visual, and integrate it into a GIS system, which we'll talk about in a minute also. But it can take, it basically fires a bunch of little points along an area, and it gives this average roadway network score for the entire road, but it also breaks down to specific areas. So in this particular case, if, can't read that from here, but if that particular street that's orange, was not bad for the entire length of the street, but had several bad sections, it would be able to identify, hey, the road itself is like a level 3, but we have some level 5 spots, within the boundaries of the road. So that would further allow some discussion and conversation on the capital planning end to be able to say, hey, we don't necessarily maybe need to do something with the entire road, but we would have to at least address those specific issues. So this data becomes available for each individual road within the borough. So, clearly I think we all have in our back of our own minds, what our targets are with respect to the borough. It'll be interesting to see what, Keller Street comes up on this one. But, one would think that hopefully it's not going to be a one. Yeah. So I don't know, as long as the truck can get down there, how about that? So this gives a little visual about how it basically is pinging as it drives along to identify those individual areas. And, you can even break it down to the point that, hey, once again, that particular road that may receive, a relatively decent score for the entire length still has individual sections, for example, like that intersection that's shown right there with the red line. That intersection appears to be bad. And then, of course, that video is also captured and available as well. Shape files. So, as we progress through time here, GIS has become a very popular method and tool and a very powerful tool, for municipalities to kind of track their roadway network and their assets. We're talking currently with Roger and the authority about, the possibility of implementing or looking at implementing GIS features, next year for storm and sanitary. But, there's also the possibility of bringing all this information together into one repository, and that's really the benefit to it, that the borough and potentially the authority could share that, repository and be able to put stuff like road mapping on there, and really it's endless. Nowadays with the technology and iPads and things like that, the data collection is usually the most intensive part. But with a phone or an iPad, anybody can do that data collection. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a storm sewer manhole or something like that. But we can then basically fire this down into the GIS, and then the guys in the field can actually use their iPads to be able to access that data in the field and make decisions, informed decisions based on what they know. Get away from the paper. If anything's taught us in the last year and a half, we can survive without paper. So, something that we want to look at integrate. So, GIS simply takes that geolocated information, plops it down on a base map. There's hundreds of different publicly available base maps, to be able to see what's going on in individual areas. So, and then of course the capital planning piece. Once we actually have those analyses done, and that's produced very quickly with respect to the analysis that comes out of the scanning, we can make informed decisions about, what's that really gonna cost, you know what I mean? And everybody's, shocked at the numbers. The numbers are stunning, you know what I mean? We get a certain amount of money every year in liquid fuels funding. Back in the day, we assumed that would be enough to maintain and stabilize our road program. It is not. It is a fraction of what really needs to be done, and that's the scary part of the whole thing. So, when somebody comes in and says, hey, you need to pay my road, they don't understand that number on the bottom is what it costs to pay the road, you know what I mean? So, and then at least we can make informed decisions, or at least responses to the public as to why we're making the decisions we're making about what roads we want to pave and when and why and things like that. So, so that's in a nutshell. Once again, I think, before you tonight, we had put together, Roger has put together a pricing, and we put together a budget of $6,500. We believe that to be reasonable to scan. That's about a day to a day and a half worth of scanning amongst the roads, the download of the data, and also producing that GIS shape file to be able to ultimately upload it into the system that we don't quite have yet. But we want to talk about that at some point in the future. So that's what's before you, a part of this, broader capital planning perspective to be able to, have the data and make decisions.
Greg, how does it rate, like, if it doesn't see it on the surface and there's an underlying issue, you can't really see that, can it?
Very true, and so, once again, typically subsurface distress presents itself in some form, so it does scan to the level of, hey, there's a little bit of cracking here versus there's a lot of cracking over here, so it can differentiate that. But if you or I go out and walk down the street, obviously we don't know, what's underneath the street, or if the pavement looks like it's in good shape. What it also doesn't do, to be fair, is it doesn't take into account the age of the pavement, really. It's really talking about its current condition. So, if it drives down a street that's relatively new, that has, similar distress features as something that's 30 years old, we may be more inclined to really tackle the 30-year-old road than the newer roads for a number of reasons. But, it cannot do that. So, another question is parking. Obviously, we have a lot of places in town where people are parked on the road. So, just like a visual observation, you're not going to be able to see underneath the cars either. So, it wouldn't be the intent that we would, close the door to parking for a day. I'm sure that would go great. But, we would really gather the same amount of data if we did it by hand or manually. So. That's all I got. Any questions for me?
Very good. Greg, this will tie into the stuff that we've been talking about with the authority, as far as the survey information, so we can have a one-stop package of GIS information that we can give to Curtis and CH. They can take it out and they can update it when they replace, like, there's a few inlets that need repaired.
Right.
They could enter that in and update it automatically, and it would go through. It would be based on the same one that the authority has their impervious surface.
Yeah. So there's really one player out there in the GIS world, it's Receipt, and we currently, if you want to go see what your stormwater fee is based on, you can go in and actually, view that. They can all plug together, so really there's only one platform out there right now that's being widely utilized. So this is just another piece. So we have pieces on the sewer side that were done years ago that, it's sitting on a flash drive, or not even a flash drive, it's sitting on probably a 3 1/4 or something like that. A file somewhere that we can plug into all of that and try to bring it all together and be in one spot. And that way, no matter whether it's this council sitting here, whether it's Roger, whether it's me, we all disappear. Craig Diener left after 40 years, he took his brain with him, so we don't have that information anymore. But the idea now is to be able to put that in one spot so that no matter what happens as we move forward, that information is available. So.
And some municipalities have an ArcGIS database available on their websites. Is that something that we could do possibly?
Absolutely. So, this is one example that we do. This is a very broad example on Concord Township, which is outside Westchester. We've been talking to Roger once again about this broad kind of brush of what you can use it for is almost limitless, you know what I mean? So there's a bunch of different things they have on there with respect to all mapping based, it's all based on geographic location, so it allows the public to be able to better see what's going on.
Also, I think for zoning, also the historic district, all that stuff.
Keep on going, yeah.
All that stuff, the comprehensive plan, and this is something that EPD and I have discussed about actually going with a virtual comprehensive plan so that it can be updated without, and we can keep track of the report card that basically what it was that I handed out tonight would be electronic. Everybody could see it. That also even including up to the tree survey in the parks, the tree inventory we have, all that stuff can be added into there that, you know, CH could have access to any of it, at his site. You know, when we take a tree down, we can make note of when it was taken down and what was replaced with. So, I know the city of Mechanicsburg has this for some of their streetlights. You can click on the streetlight, it'll tell you what wattage the bulb is, who manufactured it, the last time it was replaced. So,
data is very important.
extremely. And this will help us also with our capital improvement plan, getting that more streamlined, more bulletproof. So as Greg said, we can set it to where we need it the most. I mean, and tying it in with the authority's infrastructure plans, you know, we don't want to be paving a street that's 30 years old, and then the authority comes through and digs it up for stormwater or sewer repair. So a lot of coordination. This will allow that coordination to happen on a much quicker basis than it would be for everybody to sit down in a meeting and try to figure this stuff out.
It's scalable as well, so, you know, the idea is, hey, let's get started next year, for example, to get the kind of the base stuff together, and then use Borough staff to do the data collection as we go, and if there's other widgets you want to plug in as you go, those are all very easy to do, so you're not investing, you know, $150,000 to get this GIS system up and running, you're investing a different amount, I won't tell you what it's going to be, but you're going to invest a different amount to get it started, and then on a yearly basis, you can, you know, put some money towards maintaining it or improving it, depending on what uses you see from that, so.
That was gonna be my question. I know there's like an initial investment in mapping the surfaces, but then like maintaining the program, and then like, say, for instance, we have to work with a different company or whatever.
Right.
We retain all that information.
Yeah, so there's three very important points, and that is number one, that you are the owner of the data. It may reside on the ERISA server, but it really is yours. So whether Panoni's, you know, there, or Michael Baker, whoever might be doing it, the data is yours. So, you know, that kind of moves around. GHD, you know, a different firm did the data for the impervious area, and, you know, ERISA's figured that out. So now those can be cross-shared, you know what I mean, to be able to be in the same repository under the borough versus that. Now, there are maintenance fees, obviously. It's a web-based system, you know what I mean? It's not something you're plugging into your computer. In the old days, you used to spend $5,000 just to get the program. You know, that doesn't exist anymore. But you are spending money on an annual basis, you know, several $1,000s, frankly, to be able to have that, have them host it, have them deal with all the updates. You know, you're really just, you know, much of the IT world has gone to a more of a web-based platform than actually having the information reside for you, so. So the GIS component is a different piece of it, you know what I mean, but once again, we're setting ourselves up as we, you know, we go through the storage server, we're gonna have the information that'll plug into that, you know, when we get there, you know, hopefully for next year, so.
Any other questions for the engineer?
What's the cost?
So for the road scan, if you will, our budget number was $6,500. It would be, you know, built in our existing contract or existing rates. If it's not $6,500, we only pay what we use, but we believe that's a reasonable number based on what we see, number of lane miles. That does not include the alleys, so that should be noted.
Just put them all in red.
Well, yeah, just in my
Is there a couple working on it?
I love it.
And I will, and some of this, a lot of this can be picked up by the American Recovery Plan funds that we have. This was one of the items that was on there.
6,500?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's important to make sure we have a baseline for, to know what we're working with before we start paving stuff, like you said.
All right, so there is an item, we need a motion. Okay.
I'll make the motion.
Don't all jump at once. That was Mr. Miller, I believe, and then Ms. Sagerton, you seconded.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Martin?
Unless I hear a negative response, I'll record the vote as unanimous.
And the motion passes. Next item, please.
Discussion of possible action to set the date for the conditional use hearing for 1106, 1108 Simpson Street for an automobile dealership use, and that was attachment 1 in your packets.
Do we have a proposed date?
The proposed date that I have right now for, or the time limit that we have on it is September 9th is the last date the council has to set the date. That's the 45 days or the 60-day time limit from when it was submitted and deemed approved, or deemed complete. So you have the September 7th council meeting. We do not have time to advertise it for the second meeting in August, so September 7th would be the date that I would suggest that we have that meeting. That is a committee workshop meeting night, so if you want to do it between the council meeting and the committee workshop, that's at the council's discretion.
Make a motion to set the date for September 7th, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Before the council meeting, say 6:30 p.m. The conditional use hearing for 1106, 1108 Simpson Street for automobile dealership use.
And the date again, it's gonna be the next council
September
meeting.
7th.
Is that correct? 7?
Yes. That second would be the.
All right, so there's a motion and a second to hold the conditional use hearing on September 7th at 6:30 p.m. as per the rest of the information on the agenda for tonight.
I have another question, actually.
Okay.
Roger, the application itself, there's a blank page in here where it says fee collected, date, payment received by, and then was it reviewed by the planning commission?
Yes, it was. Actually, that was scanned in before the canceled meeting. But the planning commission did meet the Monday night after the canceled council meeting, and they did look it over. They did recommend council to move forward with it. There was a few conditions that Engineer Rogalski had set on it, and he has been in contact with the applicant. By the time this comes to council for the hearing, everything should be in line.
Okay.
And this is the property next to the current auto repair place.
Yeah, these are the two properties between the bank and the old gas station right there in the corner.
Right.
When the application comes in, do you mark it and stamp it that it was received?
We usually do. I think Jen missed it. Or he brought in two copies and this scanned copy didn't get the stamp on it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Did you get your question answered? Hearing none. Mrs. Martin?
Unless I hear a negative vote, I will record the vote as unanimous. I'm sorry.
Thank you, and the motion carries. Next item, please.
Discussion and action to execute the lease agreement for Mechanicsburg Place with Messiah Lifeway that was attached to.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Sagerton. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I'll just add, Mr. President, that I did make some minor tweaks to the draft that was presented to you, more grammatical clarifications than anything that was substantive. So that we pass along to the lesson for review.
Very good, but it didn't change any of the,
Nothing substantive.
right. Okay, anything else? Mrs. Martin?
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the vote as unanimous.
And the motion carries. Next item, please.
Discussion and action on a special event application of Brian Allen for an event to be held at Soldiers Taylor's Memorial Park on September 6th, 2021, attachment 3.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
What day of the week does that fall on?
Monday.
Yeah.
My question too is about, is he doesn't want to use the field, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Any other questions, discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Martin?
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the vote as unanimous.
And the motion carries. Next item, please.
Discussion and action on the following certificates of appropriateness. We can do these separately or all at once.
Let's do them separately.
Okay. 308 East Main Street for the installation of a sign bracket, attachment 5.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Agerton. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Bucher. Any discussion?
This was moved to a consent agenda item, so, the HARB, unanimously moved it forward through, without, what would you say, without a formal.
They reviewed it, but,
Yeah.
there was no comment.
No negative, no problem.
Okay.
They said it was fine.
All right, Mrs. Martin?
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the vote as unanimous.
And the motion carries. Next item?
39 West Simpson Street for a roof replacement, attachment number 6.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Pellman. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And Mrs. Agerton seconds. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, so, Roger, would you like to kind of give the summary on this particular situation?
I also fill in the fact that he was in, and he followed Harb's direction or request. Harb asked that this be a metal-to-metal replacement on the roof. The price difference was around $4,000 between a shingle on the side that faces Simpson Street compared to metal on the side that faces Simpson Street. So, Harb made a motion to approve this with the condition that he brought in perhaps more quotes and discussed with borough staff what he was gonna do. He brought in one quote, and the other one didn't come in, but he was in today and asked about it, and he said the other one he got wasn't even worth bringing in, it was so high, because the contractors are booking full now. But, he did what Harb asked him to do. The prices are not comparable to a shingle roof. He is using gray shingles as a replacement. So he met Harb's question, so based on the discussions at the meeting, they were very aware of the financial hardship that can be caused from the standing seam. They did not prefer the metal roof. However, they would like to see it leaking as well. So they would like to see it, but they gave him the option, and they did ask him to do a little more research, and he did. He brought the stuff, and spoke to us. His contractor actually called and said, that they were going to have to move this along a little bit because of scheduling conflicts. So they kind of left it up to borough staff to give kind of the final approval that we would accept this as a shingle replacement instead of a tin-to-tin replacement. And from borough staff's point of view, the codes officer and the code secretary, we all looked at these. We're of the opinion that he tried to meet the Harb's request, and it's just not a feasible. The finances are not there for it.
I was gonna say, as a resident of that block, there are many non-metal seam roofs on there.
The one next door, in the picture.
Yeah, and there's also some really awful metal seam roofs, on that block, so I'm happy to see an improvement, even if it isn't the replacement of the metal to metal.
I do appreciate the residents' due diligence to try to,
and they didn't have a hard meeting last night for anything to be brought back in, so this kind of fell on borough staff shoulders to put this thing through, or at least look at what he brought in. We feel that he met the Harb's ask or question, and would recommend that it be approved with the replacement of the tin with shingles.
Okay, I believe it was properly moved and seconded. So if there's no further discussion, Mrs. Martin?
Unless I hear a negative response, I will record the vote as unanimous.
And the motion carries. Please tell the gentleman he can go ahead and put his roof on. All right, next item.
1 West Main Street for building demolition, attachment 7. I'm gonna let Joe talk about this one.
so this is, I guess we have to make a motion.
I'll make the motion.
All right, Mr. Pellman hit in there first, so we'll let him make the motion, and you may have the second. Mrs. Agerton, go ahead.
So this is basically a preliminary planning step for the downtown Mechanicsburg partnership. As you know, the Main Street Renaissance project. This, like I said, it's kind of the initial step of getting the space taken care of so they can start their work. The biggest concern from the HARB was the idea that they're issuing a recommendation for a certificate of appropriateness to someone that does not own the property at this point. However, they all agreed with the merit of the project, and everyone agreed that it's a great project and it's going to do great things for our downtown. But they wanted to make sure that concern was voiced. But in my opinion, on the project itself, if it's hinging on they can't really do anything with the project or with the property they don't own. So as soon as they do close, they'll be able to do it. So they can't really do anything prior to that anyway. So I think it's on the up and up, and I believe that it would be wise to issue the certificate of appropriateness for demolition at the property.
And when we draft the certificate of appropriateness, it will be to Downtown Mechanicsburg Partnership, not Yellow Breeches. So it's going to be to them upon settlement of the property.
And
Contingent on that.
do we have a settlement date? I know that they were trying to push it up.
September 8th.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion? Mrs. Martin?
Unless I hear a negative response, I'll report the vote as unanimous.
And that motion carries. Now you see why we separated the three out. Okay, next item, please.
Discussion and action on expenditures from all funds for the period beginning July 1st, 2021 through July 31st, 2021, and they are as listed below.
Do I hear a motion? I'll make that motion. Thank you, Mr. Pellman. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Any discussion? Mrs. Martin?
Unless I hear a negative response, I'll record the vote as unanimous.
Thank you. And we have one additional item.
Yes, we do. Discussion and action to direct the solicitor to draft an economic development liquor license ordinance for Falanco, doing business as the Gingerbread Man.
And also the
Schedule the hearing date.
I'll make that motion. Thank you, Mr. Pellman. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And Mrs. Atkinson seconds. Is there any further discussion?
I just have a question. So in the spirit of economic development, as far as is there a particular time frame for the liquor license? And that's my first question. And then the second question is it once it's issued, can it be retained by Falanco for its entirety, even after even if it changed the company itself or the LLC or however it's set up or structured, change management?
So, two excellent questions, and I'm going to have to get back to you on the second one, but to confirm, but my understanding is that the economic development liquor license is specific to the applicant, and the applicant can't turn around and sell it.
Okay.
But let me confirm that, and I'll have that information to you at the time of the hearing itself. And in terms of the timeline for the...
When I say as far as so if usually something is being used with an economic development, you would think it would spark business, and not for 40 years sort of thing, you know what I mean? Is there an expiration date of that liquor license itself, or is it just forever?
I believe it's for forever.
But it's not transferable?
But it's not transferable.
Okay.
That's my understanding, but I will confirm.
Okay, all right.
If it is transferable, I believe there are limitations on its transferability, because they don't want someone to apply for a license and turn around.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Right.
Okay.
What is maybe you said this earlier, but what is the timeline for our requirement to hold the hearing?
45 days.
45 days.
Correct. And so that clock officially started ticking last Friday, July 3rd. So my recommendation would be to schedule a hearing for our next council meeting.
I'll go to the calendar go?
17th.
17th, yeah. Do we want to add that to the motion? Who made the motion, Mr. Feldman? Yes, add the date, 17th.
Yeah, I'll motion that the,
Amend your motion.
yeah, amend it to happening on August 17th prior to the council meeting.
7
7 p.m.
7 p.m. Mr. Cassidy, is that enough time for advertising? You only have to advertise that once.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, the ordinance has to be advertised twice.
No, just once.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion with the addition of the date and time. And I'm assuming you're in agreement with your second? Okay. So is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Martin, go ahead.
I'm not trying to hear a negative response, I will record the vote as unanimous.
And the motion carries. Okay, we come to that time in our meeting when citizens have a second opportunity for comment. Are there any citizens' comments at this time? Yes, ma'am.
Jen Ranowski, 807 North Arch Street. I don't know if this is appropriate, but I just wanted to thank you personally for the letter that I received in response to my issue that I brought up at the last council meeting.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. We try to get back to everybody. Yes, sir, come on up.
Joe Metallo, member of the Washington, Mechanicsburg Fire Department. I wanted to say that Community Day coming up, we're doing chicken barbecue plus having games for kids. I didn't hear that, and I wanted to make sure that is on the record.
Thank you.
Can you just real briefly explain what the games are for the kids? I was supposed to find that out for my grandkids.
Tony takes care of that.
How many chickens are you guys bringing? Do you know?
Over 300, I know that.
All right, we'll tell you out.
Great. It's going to be a good day. Any other comments from our citizens? All right, is there any other business? Before we get to that, I failed to comment that we did have an executive session at our last meeting with no action taken. And we'll get to the other business and then we'll talk about tonight's executive session, which is going to be a little long. All right, and Mrs. Mark, do you have anything to add?
Okay. Motion.
The only thing I had is that the fire that was up on Simpson Street, Chief Neff had called, said he wouldn't be at the meeting after the meeting already started, and said that the guys did a great job. They did some rescues. They got a person out. It was a very difficult fire. There were 2 houses involved, and he asked if I could come up and check the scene out tomorrow morning. So they're still up there getting hot spots, but the guys and everybody that worked together between the police department, directing traffic, keeping people off the street, and the mutual aid companies worked very well together in a very bad situation. Thank you. Yep. Mr. Mayor.
No, thank you.
Mr. Pelvin? No. Mr. Miller?
Nothing.
Mr. Booker? Nothing. Mr. Zagerton?
I would like to express my gratitude to the police department for handling a lot of difficult situations. They were called to the scene to a very difficult situation this past week, and my friends reported that the police were helpful, kind, empathetic, and Chief herself was named several times during the conversation, so thank you for your good work.
Mr. Cassidy? Nothing. Mr. Rogalski? No, sir.
Unfortunately, I have a couple of things.
That's okay.
I had a borough resident who asked me on social media whether there are any plans to paint crosswalks that are faded in certain intersections, particularly busy intersections in the borough. And my response was that I know that there is going to be a road surface analysis done, and they would likely not paint any roads that are going to be paved because that would be kind of pointless. But I wanted to bring that up to see if that's.
It seems to come up every year, actually.
There are a few that they're gonna address before school starts, so there are some they're looking at. You are correct, ones that are in pretty bad shape, they're not going to. One that really comes up is the one on, Maplewood, Elmwood at Market Street. That is a mid-block crosswalk, and PennDOT does not want that one painted. There is an accessible route up the other side of the street, and the crosswalk goes across right into a driveway, so, they do not want that one painted. I know there's a lot of people that cross there, but, technically under PennDOT regulations, it's not a crosswalk.
Thank you. The second thing I have is, regarding COVID. Numbers are on the increase again. I am not of the opinion that Borough Council needs to reconsider meeting in person at this time, but I think it is something that's going to need to continue to be evaluated as we move forward, and potentially, if numbers continue to increase, discussed at the next meeting.
Thank you.
That's all.
Chief?
No, thank you.
All right. We will be adjourning to an executive session on multiple matters of real estate, personnel, and litigation with potential action to be taken. If there are no other comments, the meeting is adjourned.